Welcome to I Just Have to Say Something. This video, while many people on the internet are being very polite about this, I have no problem calling it out for what it is. It is a clear case of racial profiling. We're going to review a video from the Institute for Justice of a traffic stop of a Mario Rosales. We're going to see racial profiling at its worst from the Alexandria Police Department in Louisiana. You might have seen in a previous video that the only serious encounter I've had with the police was when I was a soldier at Fort Polk, Louisiana, with the Leesville Police Department. And the guy was a scumbag. And it's just shocking and really disappointing that it's been over 30 years and things really hasn't changed in Louisiana. It's just pathetic. This video is going to get dissected. And I'm going to point some things out that many people may just kind of not even realize. But let's take a look at this.
You seem like a constitutionalist to me. Are you?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, I'm a lot a constitutionalist.
This police officer in Alexandria, Louisiana, stopped Mario Rosales for failing to signal a turn. He says he's a constitutionalist. But how true is that? We're going to watch the video of this traffic stop and talk about the ways it both follows and violates the Constitution. First, this is the view from the squad car's dash cam. See the turn signal? It's clearly on, but immediately after the light turns green, Mario is pulled over.
Okay. So, can you be honest with me? Why am I being stopped? Is it a failure to signal? That's pure straight honest answer. You failed to signal, so we stopped you.
Now, one could say that as a conservative, I should never be saying this, but never trust the police. They lie all the time. When they're encountering you, they are perfectly legal to lie to you. In fact, if you ever want to waste some brain cells, go watch the TV show The Closer. The entire thing is based on the police lying to their suspects to get them to confess to crimes that some of them they did commit, some of them they didn't commit. But the whole premise of it is to get people to waive their rights so they can get an arrest. And it's no different out in the streets.
And we're just talking to people after we stop them. Okay?
Unfortunately, the Supreme Court has said that police can engage in pretextual stops, meaning they can follow you until you commit a minor traffic infraction and then pull you over if they just have a hunch you've done something wrong. But pulling someone over without any reason to believe that they have violated the law itself violates the Fourth Amendment. So everything moving forward violates Mario's and Gracie's constitutional rights in this stop. At this point, Mario told the officers that he has a firearm in the car, but not on his person. The officers have no reason to believe Mario is lying or is otherwise armed and dangerous. He followed the officers' every command, remained calm, and is not reasonably suspected of a crime, much less a violent one. So frisking Mario here was unconstitutional, even if the officers had pulled him over for legitimate reasons.
Hey, can I have your permission to retrieve that firearm out of your gun, out of your vehicle?
No, I don't want anybody searching my vehicle.
Okay, cool.
Mario knows they can't search his car for failure to signal. If police demand a search, you shouldn't try to stop them, but you never need to agree. In recent years, some officers have been captured on their own body cams planting drugs in the back of vehicles. These officers might be honest, but Mario doesn't know that and doesn't trust them since he's already been pulled over for no good reason.
Now, this attorney makes a really great point. Never, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, never fight the police in the street. Fight it in the court. They ask you, can you search your vehicle? Be polite. You say no. The trick that they try to play is, well, if you don't let me search, I am going to go call a canine to come out here and to inspect your car. And you just say, okay, let them do it, because they can only keep you there for a certain amount of time. Now, I'm not an attorney, and look it up. But when a police officer calls for a canine, they need to get you in and out within a certain amount of time that's reasonable. So it's just something to think about. And if you don't give consent, you don't have to fight whatever they find in your car, because sometimes they do plant things in your car. One thing to note, I am not saying that the cop's not going to get pissed off at you and you're not going to frustrate them. Citizens who know their rights will obviously piss off the cop because he's going to know that he can't use his typical bully tactics on you.
Hey, listen, I don't know if my partner's done this or not, but I'm going to do it, okay? You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Understand your rights? Traffic stop's a legal detainment. The reason I did that is I got a couple questions that may or may not pertain to your guilt or innocence, right? So I always advise before I ask those types of questions. Yeah, it goes to the Fifth Amendment, right? So anytime you're not comfortable with one of my questions, you can say pass.
The dumbest thing about this officer is that he's talking about the Fifth Amendment. And he says, if you feel uncomfortable answering any questions, you just say pass. Well, guess what? You don't have to be a freaking genius to realize that the minute you say pass, that's going to give him probable cause to go, I want to dig further into what you just passed on. So what I would inform him of is this little thing called the Sixth Amendment. And that's, I want an attorney. You read me my rights? I ain't saying shit until I see my attorney, and end it right there. Don't say anything. Be polite. Excuse me, I'm being emotional, but be polite and just say, officer, with all due respect, since you've read me my Miranda warning, I would like to plead the Sixth Amendment, and I want an attorney, and I wish not to speak any further until I have counsel, and leave it at that.
Are you familiar with the Fifth Amendment?
Anyone who's watched a cop show on TV is familiar with the Miranda warnings. They inform people of the right not to incriminate themselves when police are detaining and interrogating them.
Do you mind emptying out your pockets for me on the hood of my car?
No. Okay.
Yeah. That's a question. Nothing else? Do you mind if I check? Hey, grab my bar real quick. Do you mind if I check? Do you have something on you you're not supposed to have?
I don't have anything on me.
The officers already frisked Mario for weapons. Now they want to search him for evidence of crimes, but the officers don't have a warrant, so they need to arrest Mario if they're going to search him without his consent. The implication is that if Mario refused to empty his pockets here, the officers would do it themselves or make the detention more unpleasant for him and his girlfriend. So Mario emptied his own pockets, but not voluntarily. That made this search unreasonable.
I mean, I'd feel a lot safer if she had her phone. She was able to record while you check me.
Yeah, I recorded. Body camera.
Americans have a First Amendment right to record the police. Government officers can impose only reasonable restrictions in the time, place, and manner of the recording. They cannot impose a blanket ban on recording them at all. Saying that the officers themselves were recording the incident is no justification for their ban on others recording. The officers' recordings could have technical issues, they could get lost, or worse, and they capture only the officer's point of view of the incident. Here, the officers had no legitimate reason to prohibit Mario and Gracie from recording on their phones.
Always do the best you can to record your encounter with the police. If you can get a dash cam, great. If all you have is a cell phone, that's good enough. There have been many cases that I've seen on the internet where police officers have been known to destroy or fail to ensure that their body cams do not get properly recorded and transferred to a storage unit.
You ever been arrested for anything?
No, I have not.
Never?
Never. Okay. I have a clean record.
I got you. Any marijuana in the vehicle?
No.
Meth.
No.
Heroin.
No.
Fentanyl.
No.
Prescription pills not prescribed to you.
No.
Cocaine. Crack cocaine.
No. I don't deal with drugs. I don't have any kind of illegal substances or drugs.
Now, to this point, one can say, where do you get your racial profiling from? Because I haven't seen it. And I will tell you, my dad's Cuban. I was born in the United States. Grew up in Miami in the 80s, so there was lots of drugs flying around all over Dade and Broward County. The questioning that this officer made, to me, is just a classic bag racial profiling. Hispanic guy, nice car, gun in the car. You are obviously a drug dealer. There ain't no way you're just hanging around from out of state in my town and you ain't a drug dealer. You gotta be a drug dealer. There's no legitimate purpose for you to be exercising your Second Amendment right, having a nice car, being Hispanic in my town. And I will tell you that this stuff has been going on for decades. My dad once told me a story when he went to jury duty where a police officer arrested a Hispanic man, a Cuban guy, and his main probable cause for the arrest is that he had a pager. And the funny part about it was I was just a teenager in high school. My dad looked at his waist, he's like, I got a pager. And, the whole thing got thrown out. But that's how long racial profiling has been going on. It has been going on for a long time. I am willing to bet money that that's what was going through his mind. Now, I'm speculating, but if I was a betting man, I would bet that's exactly what that officer was thinking.
Here the officer asked Mario a bunch of questions, mainly about drugs. That's most likely the real reason they pulled Mario over, not the pretext of failing to signal that turn. This is a good time to remind you that you do not have to answer police questions. You can just politely decline. They had a hunch based on something, his appearance, his car, his out-of-state license plates, that Mario was involved in drugs. But even if Mario had failed to signal a turn, the officers are now unconstitutionally extending the stop for a free-form investigation of drug crimes. When police pull you over for simple traffic violations, they aren't allowed to detain you to ask questions about anything you might have done wrong. If they want to question you about other illegal activity, they need to reasonably suspect that you're involved in that illegal activity. Otherwise, they should promptly proceed with the ticketing process, then restore your freedom of movement.
Do you live here?
This is where I'm trying to create my residency. Yes.
So where do you live? I got you.
I'm still trying to get, because in order to me to change my address and all that, I need to get proof of residency.
Yeah.
So I've been having to swap over a lot of my bank statements and all that.
So if you move from out of state, right? You have 30 days.
This is where I got to say, Mario, take a step back, dude. Don't tell them shit. Where do you live? I live back wherever my car's registered at. Why are you here? I'm visiting my sister. I'm thinking about moving out here. And call it a day.
The officers can't tell how long Mario has been living in Louisiana just by driving behind him, but they are fishing for crimes, big and small. Trying to be cooperative, Mario opened himself up to a citation about his registration by telling police about his complicated residency situation. The officers would later cite Mario for not switching his license plates and driver's license within 30 days.
Did you call him up yet? Huh?
Say what?
Did you call that up yet? I would say that there's more to this than meets the eye. I would check that, and I would check this. Fail to signal, fail to update his driver's license. Oh, here comes the 32. What are the chances of that?
You got to know when an officer is that emotionally invested that a Hispanic man has got to have a criminal record, that this guy must be pleasuring himself at night to be polite with the box set of Miami Vice. And he's just waiting for that big drug bust with Pablo Escobar so he could go on to the DEA and FBI. The guy's a dirtbag.
Here the officers express shock that someone driving a bright red Mustang with out-of-state plates isn't a wanted criminal. This implies Mario was pulled over on a hunch and an imagined traffic violation was a pretext. But the Bill of Rights exists to prevent government officials from just going with their gut, even if that makes it easier to uncover crimes. Here, the officers couldn't uncover the crimes they were hoping to find, so they were disappointed. And it really makes you wonder, what about Mario Rosales made the officers so sure he was a drug dealer that they audibly reacted to his clean record?
We all know why this happened, and it's obvious. And that's why I call for police modernization, where this kind of stuff is not tolerated by police departments. They have the budget to replace these dirtbags when and if these occurrences happen. They have the budget to train their people on how to interact with the public. There's remedies for this. But police departments as a whole need to modernize this, and their leadership has to have a zero tolerance policy for this kind of nonsense.
Check it out. This citation.
After a stop that should have taken less than 5 minutes took 20, the officers finally write Mario a ticket for failing to signal and not switching his registration. But Mario says he was lucky.
I don't know what this was going to become, and I was more concerned. I was more concerned after I saw the police officer have her exit the vehicle. I honestly thought that I was not going to be able to drive away. I really thought in my heart they were going to arrest me for something.
This stop shows that polite, calm constitutional violations happen in America every day. Many of them end with people in the back of a squad car or even worse. But they shouldn't happen at all. Law enforcement is an important function in a free society, but if we the people must follow the law, our government must follow the Constitution.
Now, some would ask as a conservative, why are you so hard on the police? And many of your videos are really critical of them. And it's like, I have to say that one of the ways that we can bring peace into our society, lowering the risk of riots and violence in the streets by nipping these small occurrences of misconduct by the police, because these things happen thousands of times a day. This just happens to be the one that got caught on video. This is the one that bubbled up to the Institute for Justice. This is the one that I'm talking about. Think about the Black and Hispanic communities that this happens every day, and it kindles the hatred that people have for the police. So when that shooting occurs in a minority community and the people get incensed and they say they've had it, and it goes to violence and rioting, we have to take a step back and look at those things that are leading up to these events. And what can we do as conservatives to sit there and say, hey, you're out of line? Now, you have the people on the left that say, hey, the cops are dirtbags and they could do no right. And I'm like, no, that's not true. There's bad apples and they need to be cleaned up. But there's things that could be done for modernization, shift in leadership, and having a zero tolerance policies, and making sure that the departments are properly funded so they're properly trained, so that there's absolute accountability. There's no excuse for not knowing how to properly interact with the public. The Institute for Justice is a wonderful organization, and if you were going to donate to anybody, if you're interested in civil rights, they're the people to give your money to. They're just a wonderful organization. Thank you for visiting. Please like and subscribe. I just have something to say.